"You're about to make the biggest mistake of your life," I whispered to myself as I balanced the silver tray, my fingers trembling against the polished crystal glasses, the clink of a champagne flute breaking the tense silence like a warning bell. The Grande Hotel's chandelier light reflected off the marble floors, scattering rain-soaked reflections from the terrace outside, turning the room into a kaleidoscope of gold and shadow. I adjusted my black uniform for what felt like the 20th time that evening, my green eyes scanning the room for the next table, hoping my hands wouldn't betray my nerves again. At 24, juggling 3 jobs to pay for nursing school, I had seen wealthy clients before, but tonight was different. The air smelled faintly of expensive perfume and polished wood, a subtle undertone of power that made me feel exposed despite my position as just another server. 2 men in sharp black suits moved across the terrace, their conversation hushed but intense, words like shipment and port authority brushing against my ears, sending chills down my spine. I almost dropped the tray, my heart hammering against my ribcage, the crystal glasses threatening to shatter under my grip. That's when he stepped out of the shadows, tall, imposing, his black suit impeccably tailored, dark hair swept back to reveal a face sculpted with precision, eyes the color of a stormy ocean locking onto mine. Ethan Blackwell. I had heard the whispers, the stories about his control, his authority, how he moved through a room and made it bend to his will, but seeing him in person, feeling the weight of his gaze, made my pulse spike as if it wanted to escape my chest. Every instinct screamed to step back, but I remained frozen, my hands gripping the tray as if it were a lifeline. The necklace at my throat, a simple silver chain with a small sapphire pendant, caught his eye, and for a fraction of a second, time seemed to slow. His expression shifted imperceptibly, a barely there twitch of recognition that made my stomach drop. I swallowed, trying to mask the sudden warmth creeping up my neck, but I knew he had seen it. Ethan moved closer, deliberate but controlled, each step measured, the room parting around him like water yielding to a stone. My reflection in the glass doors showed a woman caught between fear and defiance, the noise of the Gala fading into a muffled hum as his presence consumed my awareness. He stopped a few feet away, and the air between us thickened, charged with an unspoken question that made my throat dry. I whispered, under my breath, a barely audible confession. I didn't know, but he didn't need my words. His eyes, stormy and piercing, spoke volumes, and the weight of the unspoken history that clung to the necklace pressed down on me, making my hands shake as I adjusted it nervously. The room seemed to hold its breath as he extended a hand, not touching, just hovering near, a silent command that I understood instantly. Everything had just changed, and my life as I knew it was about to be pulled into a story far bigger than my own. The hum of the string quartet faded into the background, leaving only the soft clink of glassware and the distant murmur of Manhattan's night beyond the terrace. I felt Ethan Blackwell's presence as if it were a tangible force pressing against my back. Every movement I made measured under the scrutiny of those stormy eyes. My hands, still trembling from the encounter with the necklace, gripped the tray with renewed tension, trying to appear calm while my mind raced through every possible explanation for the recognition flickering across his expression. The room seemed to contract, the warm glow of chandeliers doing little to dispel the icy awareness that I was no longer invisible, that the world I had navigated so carefully for years had shifted in an instant. I moved toward a table on the far side, each step deliberate, the heels of my shoes clicking against the marble in a rhythm that mirrored the erratic beating of my heart. Ethan followed, silent and precise, not closing the distance abruptly but making sure I could feel the weight of his gaze on every fiber of my being. I caught glimpses of his subtle gestures, a tilt of the head, a narrowing of the eyes, each one hinting at thoughts he would not speak aloud, a puzzle I was only beginning to understand. A waiter approached, murmuring a request for service, but even his presence felt muted, as if the entire gala had condensed around the tension between us. My thoughts were a jumble, a rapid sequence of questions and half-formed answers, trying to anticipate what he knew, what he intended, and whether my careful concealment of the necklace had been sufficient. As I arranged glasses on the next table, a faint breeze drifted in from the terrace, carrying the scent of rain-soaked concrete and the distant aroma of the city's nightlife. It was familiar yet unsettling, each inhalation grounding me while reminding me of the delicate balance I was trying to maintain. Ethan stepped closer, his movements smooth and confident, like a conductor orchestrating an unseen symphony. His eyes flicked to the pendant again, lingering, and for a heartbeat, it felt as if he was weighing not just the value of the object, but the significance of the life it represented. My pulse quickened, and I whispered under my breath, barely audible, "Keep it together, Emily." My mind flashed to the stories I had heard, the warnings about men like him, the whispered accounts of control and precision. Yet there was something in the way he carried himself that suggested more than authority. There was calculation, intelligence, and an unexpected patience that unnerved me. I adjusted my posture, placing a hand lightly on the edge of the table, trying to anchor myself, but the tremor in my fingers betrayed the nervous excitement curling in my chest. He tilted his head, eyes narrowing ever so slightly, not in anger, but in a way that demanded understanding, a silent challenge that I could not ignore. My breaths were shallow, measured, each one an attempt to regain composure, to navigate the delicate terrain of proximity and recognition. The murmurs of the guests, the subtle rustle of dresses, even the faint clatter of silverware seemed to fade as Ethan's attention held me in place, suspended between the life I had known and the unknown that now loomed. I realized that every step I had taken tonight, every careful avoidance of attention, had led to this precise moment, a convergence of past and present that I could neither predict nor control. And yet, beneath the tension, there was a strange clarity, a recognition that however uncertain the outcome, this encounter was pivotal, a point where the smallest choice could ripple into consequences I could not yet comprehend. My hand brushed lightly against the chain of the necklace, feeling the cool metal against my skin, a grounding reminder of the story it carried. And in that instant, I understood that the evening had shifted irrevocably, that the path ahead was both fragile and charged, and that Ethan Blackwell was no longer just a shadow at the edge of my perception. He was a force I could neither escape nor ignore. The soft hum of conversation in the Gala had become a distant vibration, almost like a heartbeat in the background. As Ethan Blackwell maintained his measured approach, each step deliberate, his polished shoes whispering against the marble floors, I felt the weight of his presence press into the space around me, an invisible current that tugged at my thoughts and demanded focus I could barely summon. My hands trembled slightly as I arranged the remaining glasses on the table, the cool crystal and polished silver providing the only tangible touchpoint in the room that made sense. I stole a glance at Ethan, noting the subtle shift in his expression, a fleeting tightness around the jaw that hinted at recognition. Yet the stormy eyes remained controlled, observant, calculating. Every fiber of my being was on alert, each breath measured, as if the very air carried a hidden expectation, a story unfolding silently between us. The light from the chandeliers caught the pendant on my necklace, scattering tiny reflections across the tablecloth. And for a moment, it felt as though those tiny points of light marked invisible threads, connecting us across an unspoken past. Ethan's gaze followed each subtle movement, not advancing yet never retreating, a predator in patience rather than action, demanding awareness without a single word spoken. I could feel the tension coil in my stomach, a mixture of fear, curiosity, and something unnameable that made the room feel simultaneously vast and confining. My green eyes flicked toward the other guests, but they were mere silhouettes, unaware of the gravity that had settled between us. Their laughter and chatter a soft, indistinct background to the silent symphony of observation and understanding occurring just a few feet away. I adjusted my posture, subtly straightening my back, trying to convey calm, but every muscle hummed with tension, my heartbeat echoing in my ears. Ethan shifted slightly, a controlled movement that allowed him to close the distance by inches, each step measured so precisely that it seemed impossible for anyone to notice. Yet I felt it in the press of expectation that hung around me. My hands hovered for a moment over the tray, a light touch that betrayed the storm of thoughts racing through my mind, trying to piece together the significance of the recognition his eyes hinted at. In that silence, the noise of the Gala melted away, leaving only the faint sound of my own breathing and the quiet intensity of Ethan's study, a silent interrogation of understanding that pressed on me like gravity. I knew without being told that whatever lay in the pendant, whatever memory it invoked, it held meaning beyond my comprehension, a key to a past I had only faintly glimpsed in fragments and fleeting hints. I felt a shiver run through me as the realization sank in that this was no ordinary encounter, that every careful step I had taken in life, every moment I thought I controlled, had led me to this precise point of alignment, where the smallest gesture could ripple outward with unseen consequences. Ethan's eyes flickered once more toward the necklace, lingering with a weight that made the space between us feel taut, like a drawn wire ready to vibrate with revelation. My pulse raced as I whispered again under my breath, barely audible, "Stay steady, Emily," a mantra to anchor myself in the swirl of intensity that seemed to pulse from him like a silent drum. Each second stretched, elongated by the tension, the room's grandeur reduced to the immediate gravity of our shared presence. And I realized that nothing about this evening would remain ordinary, that every choice from this moment forward was laden with significance I could neither predict nor escape, and that Ethan Blackwell was not merely a figure at the edge of my awareness, but a force drawing me inexorably into a narrative that was just beginning to reveal its contours. The gentle clatter of silverware and murmured conversation seemed distant, almost as if the Gala had dissolved into a private world suspended around Ethan Blackwell and me. Each step I took felt deliberate, cautious, the marble floor reflecting the soft chandelier light in fractured shards that mirrored the tight tension coiling in my chest. The necklace rested lightly against my collarbone, cool and insistent, a quiet reminder of the connection it carried, a history neither of us could yet speak aloud. Ethan's presence hovered near, controlled and precise, his stormy eyes tracking every nuance of my movement, reading my posture and gestures as if decoding an unspoken language. I moved to refill a glass at a distant table, my hand brushing against the crystal as the faint vibration of the Gala's music reached me, a backdrop to the silent symphony between us. Each step I took was measured, every breath deliberate, knowing that even the smallest misstep could draw his scrutiny. Yet the pull of curiosity, the need to understand what in that session's chain, kept me anchored in the moment. Ethan shifted slightly, the movement almost imperceptible, but enough to send a ripple of awareness through the space between us, a quiet assertion of presence that was impossible to ignore. The air around us seemed to thrum with unspoken questions, the tension thick enough to be almost tactile, and my mind raced to imagine the stories, the memories, the invisible threads tied to that pendant that had drawn his gaze with such intensity. I caught sight of his hands, relaxed at his sides yet alert, as if he were weighing possibilities silently, every micro-expression hinting at knowledge he had not yet revealed. I felt a shiver of anticipation, a mix of apprehension and fascination, as my green eyes flicked to the faces of other guests, aware that they were oblivious to the quiet storm unfolding across the ballroom. The soft hum of conversation, the faint clink of glasses, the subtle rustle of fabric seemed to fade, leaving only the tension of proximity, the electric undercurrent that bound us without a single word exchanged. I adjusted my stance, shoulders squared, heart beating rapidly, yet the calm in my movements belied the storm inside. A delicate balance of maintaining composure while grappling with the sudden intrusion of significance into a night that had started like any other. Ethan's gaze lingered, unwavering, a steady presence that commanded attention, not with force but with the subtle certainty of authority and awareness. Each measured look a reminder that the necklace carried weight, that the connection it represented was immediate and profound. I felt the cool metal of the pendant under my fingers as I subtly adjusted it, grounding myself, acknowledging the history encoded in its simple form, while Ethan's eyes never wavered, his presence a silent question demanding recognition and response. The chandelier lights above shimmered, scattering reflections across polished surfaces, and in that fractured glow, the space between us felt charged, alive, as if the room itself waited with bated breath. Every motion I made was deliberate, every glance intentional, as the quiet tension stretched across the distance, and I realized with a flicker of both apprehension and understanding that this encounter had changed the night irrevocably, that the presence of Ethan Blackwell and the unspoken meaning of the necklace had drawn us into a narrative neither of us could escape, one that pulsed with the weight of past and future intertwined in the silent symphony of the Gala. The murmurs of the Gala returned, soft and distant, yet they did little to break the tension that had settled over the terrace, where Ethan Blackwell and I remained, bound by the silent gravity of recognition and unspoken histories. I felt the cool touch of the marble railing beneath my fingers as I adjusted the tray once more, careful not to let the crystal glasses catch the light in a way that would betray my nervousness. Ethan's stormy eyes followed each motion, analyzing, understanding, measuring without a single word spoken, and the weight of his observation pressed down on me like the heavy fabric of the chandeliers above. I inhaled slowly, drawing in the faint scent of polished wood and distant rain from the city streets below, using it as an anchor while my thoughts raced through possibilities. Questions about why the necklace mattered, what past it recalled, and how I was now entangled in a story far larger than the one I had imagined for myself. His presence seemed to bend the space around us, not physically but perceptually, making every sound, every flicker of movement resonate with significance. And I became acutely aware of how each step, each gesture, could communicate truths I had not intended to reveal. I moved toward another table, placing the glasses with careful precision, noting the faint shimmer of the pendant as it caught the golden light, and in that glint, I sensed the invisible thread connecting us, a reminder of events long past and decisions yet unspoken. Ethan took a step closer, his movement controlled and deliberate, a silent insistence that I remain within the radius of his attention, a presence that was both formidable and quietly instructive. The guests continued their conversations, oblivious to the taut narrative unfolding just a few feet away, and I felt the strange juxtaposition of normalcy and extraordinary circumstance pressing in on me, a reminder that while the room remained festive, my world had narrowed to the delicate interplay of glance, gesture, and the story held by the necklace. My pulse quickened as I adjusted my posture, attempting to convey composure while internally tracing the countless threads of tension woven between us, each one a potential path to understanding or misunderstanding. Ethan's eyes lingered on the pendant again, his focus so intense that it seemed to draw light into the space between us, a beacon highlighting the weight of recognition and the gravity of unspoken history. I whispered a silent encouragement to myself, each syllable a small anchor in the storm of heightened awareness, as I sensed the subtle shift in his demeanor, a fleeting acknowledgement of connection that neither required nor allowed verbalization. The soft clatter of glass and the muted laughter of the Gala seemed to recede, leaving only the intricate dance of perception, awareness, and anticipation, a delicate balance where every micro-expression, every subtle shift in stance carried meaning. I felt the cool chain of the necklace under my fingers, grounding me, reminding me that beyond the grandeur and the glittering chandeliers lay a story that was now mine to navigate, and that Ethan Blackwell, with his precise movements, his controlled presence, and the stormy debauchery teaches, was guiding us both toward revelations yet to come, a narrative suspended in the subtle tension of a moment, stretched taut with spoken understanding and the quiet inevitability of consequence. The soft music from the Gala seemed to swell and fade, creating an almost hypnotic rhythm that synchronized with the rapid beat of my heart as I moved through the room, careful not to draw attention to the necklace resting against my collarbone. Ethan Blackwell remained at a measured distance, his eyes never leaving me, stormy and calculating, and I felt the silent weight of his observation pressing against every step I took. The warmth of the chandelier light reflected off the marble floors, scattering in tiny fractured patterns that danced across the tablecloths and glasses, a subtle reminder of the elegance and precision that framed our world in this space. I adjusted my posture, taking deliberate breaths, grounding myself in the familiar motions of serving drinks and arranging glasses, while my mind raced through possibilities, trying to discern what recognition or memory the pendant had triggered in him. Each movement was meticulous, the subtle clink of crystal against silver punctuating the otherwise silent tension that stretched between us, and every glance toward Ethan revealed a barely perceptible tightening of his jaw, a slight narrowing of the eyes that hinted at understanding, calculation, and a depth of thought that I could not yet fathom. I could feel the invisible pull of the necklace, a tangible link to an unseen history, as if it held the power to align our stories across time, drawing my focus into a single thread that tethered me to the gaze he held steadily upon me. The ambient noise of the gala, soft conversation, the faint rustle of dresses, distant laughter, receded into near silence, leaving the room as a vessel for the unspoken narrative forming in the space between us. I moved closer to a set of crystal flutes on a side table, careful to maintain the rhythm of my steps and the grace of my movements, yet aware that each subtle adjustment, each slight motion of my hands, was observed and catalogued with unerring precision. Ethan shifted slightly, a controlled movement, closing the distance by mere inches, and the air between us vibrated with tension, a quiet insistence that I remain within the sphere of his attention. My pulse quickened, a soft thrum against the quiet intensity of the moment, and I whispered under my breath, a mantra to steady myself. "Focus, Emily, just keep steady." The pendant caught the light again, a subtle glint that seemed to command acknowledgement, and I felt the unspoken weight of its significance pressing through me, tying my thoughts to a history larger than the immediate surroundings, a narrative that was weaving us together without a single word exchanged. Ethan's gaze lingered, unwavering, a careful observation that suggested depth and knowledge, and for a heartbeat I imagined the stories, the experiences, the connections that he was balancing silently in his mind, all intersecting at this fragile moment. The reflections of light scattered across the polished surfaces seemed to pulse in time with my heartbeat, emphasizing the delicate balance between action and anticipation, presence and understanding. Each breath I took was measured, deliberate, as I acknowledged the gravity of the unspoken truths hovering in the space between us. And I realized that the night had shifted irreversibly, that the elegance of the gala was merely a backdrop to the quiet unfolding of significance, and that Ethan Blackwell's stormy gaze, unwavering and precise, was a force drawing me into a story that demanded careful navigation, understanding, and attention to every subtle detail that the pendant and its history carried into the present moment. The soft murmurs of the gala had returned to the edges of my awareness, but the tension between Ethan Blackwell and me remained unbroken, an invisible thread weaving through the space, as if the room itself had contracted around our shared focus. My fingers hovered over the tray, each movement deliberate, every breath measured to maintain composure, while my mind raced through fragments of understanding and conjecture about the significance of the pendant resting lightly against my collarbone. Ethan stood with an effortless command, his posture relaxed yet undeniably authoritative, stormy eyes fixed on me with an intensity that seemed to measure not just the necklace but the history it carried and the subtle traces of my own reactions, cataloging each twitch, each shift, as though deciphering an unspoken code. The golden light from the chandeliers above cast long, fractured reflections across the polished marble floors, illuminating shards of glass and crystal in a way that made the room seem almost suspended, a delicate balance of elegance and latent revelation. I moved to the side, placing a glass carefully on a nearby table, the faint clink resonating through the near silence that now surrounded us, and I could feel the weight of his attention pressing against every calculated step I took, each one a negotiation between caution and necessity. The air seemed charged with the quiet hum of anticipation, a subtle vibration that made my pulse accelerate as I considered the unspoken history encapsulated in the pendant, a story that Ethan's gaze insisted I recognize without words, a narrative that connected past and present in ways I had only begun to perceive. I adjusted my stance, shoulders squared, heart beating steadily against the anticipatory tension. As I glimpsed the careful study in his eyes, the way his fingers flexed slightly at his sides, the faint shift in his weights signaling attention and thought, a presence that required acknowledgement yet demanded no immediate action. The guests moved around us in oblivious grace, their conversations a distant melody, their laughter a soft percussion against the backdrop of our silent engagement, and I realized that every detail, every gesture, and every subtle movement now carried potential significance, each a small clue in the unfolding recognition that linked us invisibly. Ethan stepped slightly closer, a calculated motion, and the space between us seemed to stretch and contract with the weight of unsaid understanding, the unspoken dialogue flowing silently as his eyes traced the contours of the pendant, the shimmer of sapphire catching the chandelier light in a subtle yet commanding flash. My pulse quickened, a steady thrum beneath the surface of measured calm, as I whispered to myself, grounding my awareness in the small tactile realities of crystal, marble, and polished silver, seeking anchor in the minutiae of the physical, while navigating the expansive implications of recognition and connection that hung quietly between us. The golden reflections danced across the room, fracturing into patterns that mirrored the intricate weave of history, identity, and consequence now pressing upon us. And I understood with sudden clarity that the moment had shifted, that the Gala, with all its elegance and restrained opulence, had become a stage for revelation, for subtle negotiation, and for the quiet acknowledgement of a bond neither of us could yet fully articulate. Every glance, every measured breath, every careful step was a step along a path now irrevocably altered, guided by the gravity of understanding and the careful precision of Ethan Blackwell's unwavering presence. As the pendant rested against my chest, a silent herald of the story that was only beginning to unfold, drawing us into a rhythm of shared awareness, anticipation, and the delicate, powerful gravity of unspoken truth. The Gala seemed to fold in upon itself, every glittering chandelier reflection and polished marble surface highlighting the taut space between Ethan Blackwell and me, as if the room itself recognized the significance of the moment we occupied. My hand brushed lightly against the edge of the tray, each motion deliberate, fingers lingering briefly over the crystal glasses, grounding myself in the familiar rhythm of service while my mind traced the intricate path of recognition that the pendant had initiated. Ethan's presence was near yet restrained, his stormy eyes holding mine with unwavering focus, measuring not just the necklace but the subtleties of my expression, the tension in my shoulders, the minuscule shifts in my posture, as though each movement were a chapter in a story only he could read. The soft hum of conversations and laughter at the Gala faded further into a distant murmur, leaving only the quiet pulse of anticipation that thrummed between us. A rhythm that resonated in my chest and made each breath feel both immediate and expansive. I adjusted my stance subtly, the necklace cool against my skin, an anchor to the history and meaning it carried, and I sensed the invisible thread connecting us, a conduit of understanding that neither of us had yet voiced, yet both acknowledged. Ethan stepped closer with careful precision, closing the distance incrementally, his movements measured yet purposeful, creating a charged space that seemed to ripple with unspoken questions and tentative revelations. The ambient light played across his features, catching the edges of his suit and the subtle glint of his watch, each reflection reinforcing the controlled authority and understated intensity he radiated, while my own eyes traced the familiar contours of the pendant, the simple sapphire gleaming in the chandelier glow, holding more significance than its delicate form suggested. I moved to place a glass on a side table, every step a negotiation between composure and heightened awareness, aware that Ethan's focus remained unbroken, his stormy gaze following each motion, calibrating, measuring, silently asserting his understanding and recognition of the link we shared. My heartbeat quickened, yet I maintained the deliberate cadence of service, the physical act of arranging crystal flutes grounding me as my mind navigated the layers of history, recognition, and consequence now converging around us. The subtle reflections scattered across polished surfaces seemed to dance in rhythm with the tension, fracturing light into a tapestry that mirrored the complexity of unspoken narrative and unfolding in the space between us. I whispered a quiet reassurance to myself, steadying breath by measured breath, as Ethan's presence drew closer still, not imposing but commanding. A gravity that compelled focus and full awareness of each gesture, each glance, each micro-expression. I felt the pendant against my collarbone, a tangible reminder of connection, history, and the narrative poised to unfold, and I understood that the Gala, with its music, laughter, and sparkling elegance, had become the stage for a silent dialogue of recognition, revelation, and anticipation, where every step and every glance carried weight, and the story between Ethan Blackwell and me was only beginning to reveal its depth, its resonance, and its unspoken power, drawing us both inexorably toward a moment of understanding that neither the grand hall nor the golden reflections above could contain. The grand hall of the Gala seemed to hold its breath as Ethan Blackwell and I remained suspended in the quiet tension, the stormy depths of his eyes tracing every movement I made, every subtle adjustment in posture. As if reading a language written only in gestures and expressions, I felt the pendant of the necklace cool against my skin, its weight a grounding reminder of the invisible thread connecting us across a history that neither of us had yet spoken aloud. My hands hovered over the tray, each motion deliberate, placing crystal glasses with careful precision, the soft clink echoing through the near silence that enveloped us like a private bubble amid the distant murmur of the Gala. Ethan took a step closer, measured and controlled, the room around us fading into a blur of warm lights and golden reflections, leaving only the charged space of observation and understanding that stretched taut between us. The ambient music, the laughter of guests, even the rustle of elegant gowns seemed to diminish, replaced by the quiet symphony of anticipation and unspoken recognition that pulsed between us. I adjusted my stance, feeling the subtle shift of his presence as a force that was both commanding and precise. And I could sense the depth of consideration behind every glance, every micro-expression, as he weighed the significance of the necklace and the story it carried. My pulse raced in careful rhythm with my deliberate breaths, each inhale a tether to composure, each exhale a silent acknowledgement of the weight of history and the implications unfolding in this charged moment. The reflections of chandelier light fractured across the polished marble, scattering like tiny beacons that mirrored the intricate web of connection and consequence threading through the space between us. Ethan's gaze lingered, unwavering, stormy yet measured, and I felt the quiet gravity of understanding settle over me, the realization that the encounter was now irrevocably entwined with the history the pendant symbolized. A narrative neither of us could yet fully articulate, but both felt with acute awareness. My fingers lightly traced the chain of the necklace, a small, grounding gesture amidst the intensity of silent communication. And I sensed the convergence of past, present, and the nascent possibilities of what recognition could bring. The soft hum of distant conversation continued, yet it was peripheral, a gentle backdrop to the charged exchange of awareness and anticipation dominating the immediate space. Each careful movement, each microshift in stance, became loaded with significance, a choreography of subtle acknowledgement that required full attention and presence, a delicate balance of observation, recognition, and the nascent understanding that this moment had the potential to unfold into a story neither of us had anticipated. I inhaled deliberately, centering myself as Ethan's controlled presence continued to assert gravity, each glance suggesting awareness, patience, and an unspoken assessment of what lay beneath the surface, the pendant acting as a catalyst for comprehension and connection. In that suspended space, the Gala transformed from a gathering of distant elegance into a stage for revelation, where every reflection, every gesture, and every controlled movement carried weight, guiding us both toward an understanding that was quiet yet undeniable, immediate yet pregnant with future significance, a shared acknowledgement of recognition, history, and the invisible thread of consequence now weaving our lives together in a rhythm that could neither be ignored nor reversed.